Radio check. 20th place. Okay, mate, get ready. Relax. Go.
Hello guys, welcome to another race. This time we are in Mugello, Ferrari's test track in Italy. And this is a pretty interesting track. We have lots of corners and lots of interesting places to actually drive the car.
Yellow flag.
The start was very messy, as you guys can see. Lots of people spinning, lots of contact. These cars are not easy to avoid contact.
Right.
We also had a little bit of contact.
He's still there. Right side's clear. Good start. Keep it up.
That guy was spun out on the track. In this Euro Racer server, the fuel height for this car was at 250% and the tire height was at 350%. So a 20-minute race actually feels like a 1-hour race regarding fuel consumption and tire degradation. We actually are running medium tires and we will be forced to pit halfway through the race. Otherwise we won't have enough fuel to go up to the end of the race, and at the same time this was a pretty quick overtake.
Right side, yellow clear right.
But as I was saying, we will not have enough fuel and we will not also be able to manage the tires until the end of the race. Even with our tires, it's pretty hard to manage the tires until the end, and in the end you end up hurting your race pace too much to justify not pitting the time that you waste in the pits. I think depending on the car, on the track conditions and how the server is configured, maybe that can have a little bit of a different change and impact, but overall I would always choose to pit.
P7.
We ended up getting up to P7 from P20 in just the first lap, and now we have to worry about the back markers.
Clear right.
I think I'll honk him.
Car right, clear right, yellow flag.
This part is a little bit dangerous. Now I want to push the car and I know that I can have a little bit more pace and I want to get as close to the front as possible, so I really don't want to waste too much time. We almost pinned it here, so we have to be careful not to have a big shunt.
On your right, right side's clear.
It's easy to understeer or to lock the brakes, especially if you are not smooth.
Okay, Carlos, you've got 10 minutes of fuel remaining. Car left. Still there, clear left. Nice pass.
We finally made it stick through the inside of that chicane. Now we are finally in clear water and we can start worrying about driving the car, adapting to the track conditions, track temperature and tire degradation. And now let's see how far can we get up the grid. I think we can get some more positions if we play our cards right.
Flag, P6.
Going into our third lap, we can start to see some tire degradation on the Pro Tire app. I still don't feel too much difference in the car, maybe just a tiny bit, but also the pressures are a bit low and the temperatures are a bit low. Changing tire quality will make us have to adjust the pressures so we keep the tires in the same ideal operating window.
Yellow flag.
And here we got pretty lucky because P4 just spun out, probably due to some tire degradation in the rear. We got a bit lucky and we ended up snatching this position. Now we have to keep up the pace, be able to defend it, but also keep in mind that I don't want to overwork the tires too much. We got some catching up to do, but we have to be careful. I'm not used to drive this car, but I still have to push a bit more if I want to have any chance at the
15
podium.
minutes left. Alright, Carlos. Don't think about the lap times. Just hit each and every apex. The gap in front has increased to 9.6 seconds. The gap behind has increased to 6.4 seconds.
I could recommend this car to anyone that is new to Assetto Corsa as a beginner sim racer, but at the same time it really depends on the setup that you get for the car and the track. But because the car can step out on the rear and you can lock the brakes if you are not braking in a straight line and controlling the brakes a bit carefully.
Awesome stuff, mate. Keep it coming. E4.
You don't have any traction control, but at the same time the car doesn't have that much power, and it is pretty inviting for you to step on the throttle a bit harder, especially exiting corners. But you have to keep in mind that you can break the rear axis grip on the tire if you accelerate too much, too hard during cornering.
Okay, Carlos, the pit window is now open. We'll need to refuel 12 minutes into the race.
And also, if you steer too much, you can break the rear end traction. But other than that, I think the front is a bit well planted, it is a bit strong with this car.
That's half fuel. You've used half your fuel.
If you get a setup where you can tame the rear end of the car to avoid it stepping out too much and the brakes locking a bit too much, being careful on brake, the car becomes very beginner friendly because you're just dealing with the understeer in the front and avoiding understeer or maybe a little bit of oversteer when you throttle too much. But other than that, it becomes pretty simple. You just need to get a setup that gets the car kinda stable and then you control it from there.
The gap in front is now 9.2 seconds. Is the car leaving the pits? That's 5 minutes of fuel left.
I find these servers rules to be fantastic. It's terrific to have a time-lapse style race where we are only racing for 20 minutes, but at the same time we have the feeling of the endurance race where we actually have to work a little bit more on strategy, and I think this should be a little bit more prominent in the game, especially in a simulation like Assetto Corsa. We are getting pretty close to another back marker. Again, we gotta be careful not to bin it. When I saw that on the AMD Corsa radar, that was a little bit close, a bit dangerous.
Good lap. That's your quickest today. Alright, Carlos. Very little fuel left. In this lap. Box this lap. Yellow flag. Watch out.
I almost forgot to box. Lucky that the race engineer told me to box. I totally forgot about the fuel. Here we binned it, we almost spun, but we end up getting back on track pretty quickly. The tires are starting to wear out, and at the same time we have less fuel, so the car starts to feel a little bit lighter. I oversteered due to too much throttle on exit.
That's half distance. We estimate 2 minutes of fuel left. The guy behind's really new in. The gap's now 7.9 seconds. You've got cold front tyres.
So it's a little bit easier to lose control. We gotta start to be a bit more careful until we bid to change tires.
Clear left. We're running on fumes, mate. In this lap, box this lap. The gap ahead is now 14 seconds.
And here we go finally into the pit. I forgot about the damage on my front wing from the early shunt into the race, and I didn't repair anything. Maybe during the tire change they could do some repairs on the damage in the front wing. I ended up driving with the damaged car the whole race.
There's a car approaching. Stay behind the line. Yellow flag. Clear left. Okay, Carlos. The next car is Roncalves.
I'm not sure if this guy has already gone to the pits or if his tires are degrading a lot, but I think I have a lot more pace and I think I'll be able to overtake him quite nicely.
On your left. Still there. Clear left. The car in front is pitting. Your gaining on the guy in front. The gap is 13 seconds. Your tyre temps are looking good.
Then I think it's time to push.
Okay, Carlos. 5 minutes to go. 5 minutes left.
And as we are approaching the end of the race, I am being able to close the gap.
You're gaining on this guy. The gap's now 1.8 seconds. Yellow flag.
I managed everything in a timely fashion so that by the end of the race I would have the fresher tires and I would be able to push as hard as I wanted if I wanted to, and at the same time I would feel a little bit more confident and safer, being a little bit more secure with the car, being a little bit more confident and trusting that I can drive a little bit more aggressively and get stuff done. Here this guy was a little bit annoying. He was holding us for a few seconds, just a little bit. He could have yielded the racing line to us since he had the blue sign, he had the blue flag, and so he was getting lapped.
Car right. Hold your line. Clear right.
We are getting pretty close. P3 is within reach, and with the draft behind we might get him on the main straight.
Yellow flag.
We also have a better entry into the last corner, gaining a little bit more time and distance.
Car right. Hold your line. Clear right, P3. One more lap to go. You've just done a 148 points. Car right. Still there. He's still there. Clear right. Yellow flag, keep your wits about you, mate.
I was pretty happy with this overtake. We had lots of respect for each other, especially when side by side with different racing lines. This level of racecraft is what I wish upon all the sim racers out there. I'm really happy to be able to race with people that actually love the motorsport and not the destruction derby. Usually in other races I might be able to go up into the lower 47s, but here, due to the server rules and not being used to even this car and this track, I'm kinda new, especially to driving this car, and so I was pretty happy. I drove it a little bit in some other servers where I was able to be a little bit faster.
Leader's just done it, 147.0. The guy in front has just done a 147.1. Okay, Carlos, we estimate you've got 5 minutes of fuel remaining.
I also didn't want to cut down this lap because this was my fastest lap of the race, so this lap I did not cut it and you can watch it in its entirety. This was my first attempt at recording the race and I was happy with the lap.
You pulled it away from the guy behind. The gap's now 3.0 seconds.
Here we almost pinned it because I was a little bit too greedy on the throttle. I wanted to beat my previous time, but it was okay.
The stewards have warned us about track limits. Keep it between the lines.
In the end we were more consistent in our driving. We were able to be a little bit defensive when we needed. We ended up getting a podium, P3 from P20 in this endurance race where the conditions make it a bit harder to drive. I was pretty happy with the results. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video.
Well done, Carlos. Great drive. That's a podium.
Please leave your comments, likes and subscribe to the channel. Leave your opinion about the server's rules for this kind of endurance races and see you guys soon.